The window, I think, is terrific in the sense that so many embassies and high commissions, not just ours, but other countries' embassies and high commissions look like a portrait or like a prison. And having a window in which people can see people coming and going, I think is really important. And I think,
well, it changes the perception completely.
It does. That we're not sort of hiding or something sort of devious going on. So people being able to see it is important, but we get demonstrations here occasionally, and we cover up the window.
And what purpose of these buildings is to say something about Britain, presumably. How does it do that?
Well, I think the point about being not just confirming the sort of stereotypes of unglamorous but reliable, which I think certainly our previous building had, to something which is much more creative and innovative. It certainly helps on the trade investment side. We're talking about what's in architecture and across the whole of the UK economy about being innovative. But also having elements of the Sri Lankan design. I mean, it's a sort of respect point. That you're not just putting a British building down in the middle of Colombo, but you're putting a building which has been built, and indeed, incorporating a lot of the Geoffrey Bower principles, having open plan but around courtyards, so that it's not just like a trading floor where you've got a huge aircraft hangar of space. You've got this open plan, you can get a lot of flow of the staff, so they can mix and bump into each other. I think it helps that the courtyards are different because, as I said, each team is sort of clustered around the courtyard. So it's their courtyard, they can step out into it to stretch their legs to get a breath of air. And so it helps that they're all different, it's not identical. And then again, going around the building, you see something new each time.
Each wing contains an individual department. So you've got management, visa, consular, UK trade and investment, airline, immigration, kind of stuff. So they kind of quite neatly sit in their own wings, and general support and admin back up to that sits in this main open plan space. And we thought, well, here of all places we have an opportunity with the kind of the vernacular history and the way Barwhite reinterpreted the idea of courtyards, and we had the opportunity to say, well, let's try and move away from that image of a kind of object building in a compound, and let's do something much more calm, much more domestic, kind of more approachable, and more about its place, really. That's what it's about, really. And at the same time say, well, let's try and make that building kind of touch the boundary of the site and become a public building to the street, which again is quite it's a difficult thing to do, because obviously you're dealing with a lot of security constraints as well, which are applicable anywhere on any site in the world.
But what's interesting is you've designed it right up to and including the perimeter. And normally what happens with these buildings is you get a lot of gash space, both internally and externally, particularly externally. And that hasn't happened here.
No, I think we probably made things harder for ourselves and our security consultants on the team as well and to their credit, John Gaylord at the Foreign Office supported the idea of the single-story building, because the obvious effect of that is it's going to be more of a sprawling footprint than if we'd said, well, we're actually going to build 4 or 5 stories. We would have been naturally been further away from the perimeter. But the site is unusually small in modern thinking in terms of purchasing a piece of land to put a high commission on, just because nowadays you're looking for a degree of a standard standoff distance before you even start thinking about building anything.
Tell me about the shape of the building. I mean, there's quite a few sustainable elements to the building. There's natural ventilation and things.
That's right. I mean, you can see the chimney pot spinning, which is the warm air convecting out. So the idea being, I mean, Matt can tell you better than I, but the idea being you're just sort of topping up the air conditioner rather than having to go full blast all the time. The courtyards where people can open the courtyards and have air convecting through and up and out, and also a lot of reflected light coming in, so that we don't need a lot of artificial light. So it's part of an ongoing, of course the Foreign Office, the government has an ambitious greening agenda for all of its buildings.
You've obviously worked in a lot of embassies and high commissions around the world. How's it compare?
I think it's the most dramatic building that we have.
Quietly dramatic.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. I think it's a real privilege for me to have arrived a few months before it was finished.